So here's a film that my first reaction whenever I see the title is, I almost saw that at the drive-in back in 1985. This is 1985's Witness from director Peter Weir, starring Harrison Ford and Kelly McGillis and Danny Glover. And this was a huge movie in its day. This is out now on Blu-ray and 4K from Arrow Home Video. They put it out two separate editions. You can get the 4K edition or you can get the Blu-ray edition. So depending on what you have for your home system, choose your poison accordingly. But Witness is a film that was huge in its day. It was a popular title in the theater. It was multiple Oscar nomination and I think a couple awards, and it was huge on home video in its day. So it's interesting to revisit this film. I really have not watched Witness since probably the late 80s, mid to late 80s. As I said, I almost saw this at the drive-in as a kid. My best friend's family took us all to go see Summer Rental, the John Candy movie, and which I always thought was sort of like a slightly weaker version of Vacation. I liked Summer Rental, loved John Candy, but we're not talking about that right now. The co-feature was Witness, so after the intermission, Witness was going to come up. Unfortunately, my parents' friends had already seen Witness, and we left. And I'm like, yeah, but I haven't seen it. You get two movies at the drive-in. Why you leave? I still don't get it when people leave after the first movie. Anyway, we're not talking about drive-ins. We're talking about Witness from Arrow Home Video. So this is a fantastic set. This is a film, as I said, I had not seen this in a really long time. So my recollection of the film was very, very vague. Beyond little Amish boy witnesses something that he shouldn't. Harrison Ford is trying to protect him. Harrison Ford goes undercover as an Amish person in Amish country. I was almost accurate in that memory. Story goes a little something like this. Kelly McGillis, an Amish woman in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and her young son, portrayed by Lukas Haas, they go to the big city to visit family, they're going to Baltimore. They're headed to Baltimore, I believe, for some reason. And they stop in Philadelphia to change trains, and the little boy has to go to the bathroom. I'm not going to tell you the whole story or the details of what he does in the bathroom. He goes in the bathroom and witnesses a murder. And they tell the police. Harrison Ford is assigned to the case. Turns out this is a bit more complicated case than anybody expected, and Harrison Ford and Kelly McGillis and Lukas Haas wind up fearing for their lives, and they head on down. They boogie on down. Do you boogie? Do you boogie to Amish country? They ride the cart on down to Amish country and hide out in the McGillis' community, hoping that the things will blow over and the police will get the perpetrator and they will all be safe. So it's really a fish out of water story. It's briefly a fish out of water story with the two Amish people in Philadelphia at the train station and dealing with modern life. But really the majority of the film is Harrison Ford learning to accept and be accepted by the Amish community, who, if for some reason you don't know what the Amish people are, it is a religious order predominantly based in Pennsylvania Dutch, they're called, who eschew modern technology and live as people would have in the 1800s and things like that, agrarian community. So more people in this than I recalled being in it that I recognized. You had Alexander Godunov is in the film, Viggo Mortensen in a small role, and I'd forgotten that Danny Glover was in the film, and Patti LuPone briefly plays Harrison Ford's sister. It's a really good movie. We know this, right? You know that Witness is a really good movie, right? Good drama, some comedy, really nicely shot, and just a solid drama with Harrison Ford, of which he has not done a tremendous number of those. Harrison Ford tends to be in more action or comedic-oriented films. So this was done, I guess he said, the extras here said that Harrison Ford accepted the role while he was shooting Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And let's dig into what the extras are here. So the film is really good. We know this. It's romantic, it's dramatic, it's tragic, it's marginally comedic. There is some action involved in the film, and action involving an actor whose name I don't recall, unfortunately, but I know he plays Rosie LaRose in Strange Brew, and he's in Star Wars. So, and Godunov, interesting in this, Godunov very much playing against type in this film, and that's all I'm going to say. When I first saw him in the movie, I thought I had him figured out, and I was happily wrong. So, shot in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, very close to where I spend a lot of time at the Mahoning Drive-In Theater in Lehigh, Pennsylvania. So, film is 112 minutes long, presented in English 5.1 surround, English 2.0 home video mix, which I find very interesting, English 2.0 theatrical Dolby stereo. I love it when Arrow is as complete as they are with these alternate cuts and alternate mixes. My guess is that there's nothing really explained in the packaging about that. My guess is that the home video mix probably was a case where they had to swap out some music that was in the film, because very often you'd see Paramount titles like Naked Gun 2.5 is one that I remember, where they would say special home video version, where a song that was used in the theatrical film couldn't be cleared for the home video, so they had to replace it with something else. I'm going to guess that's what it is. It's cool if you grew up watching or spent most of your life watching Witness on home video and you want to see it the way you remember seeing it, even if it's not the way people saw it in the theater. So I respect their respect for the various mixes. The score by Maurice Jarre, or Jar, is very synthy too, by the way. I've seen my notes here. I'd forgotten about that. It's very synth. Even the orchestrations are done by synth. It gives it an interesting vibe. It adds to the alien feel, the alien landscape feel, which is no more visually alien than amber waves of grain and things like that. But it makes things it feels a little off hearing that music in that setting, and that really kind of correlates to how off it is that Harrison Ford is in this community where he doesn't belong and doesn't quite understand their ways, but slowly, not to give anything away, but slowly over time, he comes to accept them, and they, more importantly, come to accept him, the outsider, or the English, as they call him. Some more notes here. It was the 1986 Academy Award winner for Best Screenplay and Editing, nominated for Best Actor for Harrison Ford, Best Picture, Best Director, Cinematography, Music, and more. So this was like a wildly acclaimed movie in its day. The 4K is really sharp. Transfer, I thought, was a little bland. It might have been my monitor. Some of the clips that they use elsewhere seemed a little bit more rich in color, but the transfer might have been the original intent of the film. A lot of times for home video or the media formats where things get released, things get tweaked along the way. I didn't think it was any more stunning than a Blu-ray transfer to me, but I often feel that way about 4K stuff. 4K clearly is sharper, but sometimes to my eyes, it's not a gigantic difference. Like, say, the difference between Blu-ray and DVD. I will say it's amazing how sharp a lot of this stuff is now, how you can see the grain, you can read details in the background you could never see on TV or on video before, so I greatly appreciate it. Extras are commentary by film historian Jarrett Gahan. It's a comprehensive history in the making of the film, discussion of fish out of water films, controversy during production, and eventual success. I believe this commentary, if this is the one I'm recalling, even mentions Giallo films for a while, which was kind of cool. The Eye of the Witness extra, new interview with cinematographer John Seal, that's 15 minutes. Show Don't Tell, new visual essay on the film's performances by film journalist Stacey Lynn Wilson, that's 15 minutes. Harrison Ford in Conversation, this is really cool. There's a 1985 Bobby Wygant interview, that's 7 minutes. If you don't know Bobby Wygant, she was a Texas-based film journalist who basically went to all the press junkets, and whenever film talent came to Texas where she lived, they would do the interviews, the kind of interviews you would always see on Entertainment Tonight or anywhere, where the actor is telling a little bit about the movie. And she has uploaded most of these to YouTube. She retained ownership, brilliant on her part, of her archive, and she has hours and hours and dozens and maybe hundreds of hours of her interviewing various celebrities. So this is that whole talk with Harrison Ford, both about Witness, but also about, tell us about the next Indiana Jones movie. And he talks about how they were going to start another Indiana Jones movie like in 1986 or something like that never happened after Temple of Doom. So it's a really cool, and he's really relaxed, and he admits that he doesn't like to do press very often, but he believed in Witness so much he felt like he needed to get out there and tell people how great it was. So that's a really, really cool chat from a guy who's usually pretty reluctant to get too deep into interviews. Show Don't Tell, new visual essay on the film's performances by film journalists. I already said that. Sorry, I'm not a good reader. It's Between Two Worlds, The Making of Witness. That's a 5-part archival documentary with cast and crew interviews. That's an hour and 4 minutes. You get a conversation with director Peter Weir. That's an archival interview that's 7 minutes. You get EPK featurettes. It's electronic press kit. That's the kind of thing that they would send out to journalists or TV stations to use bits of. So it's a mix of clips from the film and interviews on set with Harrison Ford and the director and some other people. That's really cool in that you see how terrible film transfers were in 1985 and how dark and ugly clips used to look when they were shown on TV. That didn't reflect what they looked like in the theater and didn't necessarily reflect what they would look like on home video. But at the time, a lot of stuff was super rough. There's a deleted scene from the network TV version of the film. It's very 1984 or 1985, shot in 84, released in 85. It has Lukas Haas interacting with Patti LuPone's sons. There's a picture sequence in the film where McGillis and Haas are sort of being kept safe in Harrison Ford's sister Patti LuPone's house, and you don't see that she has kids in the film, the theatrical version of the film. But here, this is like a morning after they arrive scene where Lukas Haas is like hanging out at the breakfast table with their kids and basically being immersed and spoiled by American culture. And you just see they're playing ColecoVision or Intellivision. They're eating Count Chocula. There's a Sunkist can nearby. There's just like all kinds of. It's almost like now when they set a film in the past and they like overload the frame with vintage items, so like you get whacked over the head with the fact that it's the 80s or whatever. This is just the way it was at the time. They're trying to basically whack you over the head with all the junk elements of American culture at the time, which I look at and I go, oh, I had that stuff. So it looks great. It's in widescreen and it doesn't look like old TV. So it's a really nice master. A lot of times you see scenes that were done for TV and they come from YouTube or they're 4:3 or whatever. This looks as good as the rest of the transfer here does. You get the minute and a half theatrical trailer. It's a little scratchy, but it's sharp and actually a little bit richer color than the feature in the way that I watched it. And then you get an image gallery of 74 images from the film. So that is what's on this set. It's deluxe. It's a great movie. It's a movie that really made a mark in its day. Nobody really talks about Witness anymore. It's one of those films where I think Harrison Ford, the go-to for him is obviously the franchise films that people talk about. But Witness was really great in its day. So it's great to see getting this Criterion level. Honestly, between you and me, I think Arrow does more than Criterion, does a bit better job than Criterion as far as the deluxeness of their sets. Got no beef with Criterion, just I always say Arrow is my Criterion. So for the Arrow treatment, Witness is now available.